Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Financially Irresponsible. I'm your host, Rakim Sabri, and raise your hand if you've already made some financial mistakes this year. And I think that that's okay. The important thing is that we focus on the goals that we set and we recalibrate. If we fall off the horse, we get back on. And so in this part of the year, it's very important to establish those habits and reinforce those habits so that we can maintain healthy financial habits throughout the remainder of the year. Now, in the last episode, I talked a little bit about this new strategy that I'm trying. It's called the 12-week year. It comes from that book, the 12-week year. And basically, the goal is to establish, or rather to start thinking outside of the annualized thinking, the old way of thinking, that we have all year, 12 months to do these things, and focus on 12-week intervals where we're laser focused on a particular goal or topic or behavior. And in this case, that behavior is around money. And so within this 12-week year structure, as I explained to you guys last time, you are reviewing at the end of every week how your progress is. Did you hit all of your goals? Was your budgeting, did you fall within your budget or did you exceed your budget? How is your credit rating? How is your savings? Et cetera, et cetera. In today's episode, I want to actually talk about a case study, a real life situation that someone came to me with, a client of mine, and kind of break down what happened from a tactical perspective in terms of their actual money and from a supportive perspective in terms of their behavior, their emotions associated with their circumstances. And I've already gotten their permission to share that with you, but I will not share their name or any identifying information, so they are safe. However, going into the future, if you want to share your financial situation and have us answer questions or provide feedback around what we think you should do, definitely feel free to leave us some comments or reach out to us via email. So in this particular case study, individuals in their 30s, male, had a pretty high, or rather higher than recommended usage on their credit cards. Typically, your recommended usage is 30% or under, and your usage or the credit utilization makes up 30% of your total credit score. And so with that in mind, this individual actually recently experienced a reduction in their total available credit, which brought their utilization close to 100%. And so just want to pause for a second and kind of talk about that. When we look at our credit cards and how we use them, the credit at the end of the credit card billing cycle, wherever your utilization is reported, or however much of that credit limit is reported to the credit bureaus, and it's pretty much time-stamped. This is how much utilization is. And those timestamps can influence for that monthly cycle where your credit score stands. So some people will use their credit card and maybe they'll use it up to the max. Maybe they'll use 100% of their available credit, but they'll make sure that they pay off that available credit before the end of their billing cycle so that they're not charged interest and it's not reported to the credit bureaus that they're over that recommended 20 to 30%. Other people will allow their limit, or rather allow their utilization to come up on 30% or higher, carry a balance, and because they're at that nice range, 20 to 30%, it's not going to have a strong negative impact on their overall credit score. And then what I'm seeing as being a more common situation, especially in today's economy, are individuals who are what's called over leveraged. That means they're using more of their credit, available credit, than they have the ability to pay back in that particular moment. Obviously not a best practice, but it is something that people are doing in order to survive, right? The cost of groceries, the cost of gas, the cost of living all the way around is a lot higher due to inflation. And so, of course, people are relying on extensions of credit through the available credit lines that they have, specifically the rotating credit lines that are credit cards. So this individual felt like they were safe because they were just over the 30%, closer to maybe around 50% of their total utilization. Again, not ideal, but still safe. They felt very secure in the event of any kind of emergency situation because they knew that they had the available credit left over on the credit card. Periodically, what banks will do, if you have any kind of credit cards with them, is they'll do what's called a soft inquiry on your credit. And so basically what that looks like is they're taking a peek behind the scenes at your credit score to determine whether or not they can extend you higher lines of credit. So if you ever noticed that your credit card available limit increased, probably because the bank did a soft inquiry to see, how are you managing your credit on that particular account? How is your overall credit looking across the different credit accounts that you might have? Maybe you have 3 different credit cards with 3 different banks. All of that is reported to the credit reporting agencies, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. But the reverse can be true too. Banks can do a soft inquiry to determine how you're doing with your credit. And if they see that you are in a position where maybe you're over leveraged, or maybe you're late on a few payments, or maybe you've missed payments, as a protective measure or really managing risk, what they'll do is they'll decrease the amount of credit that they have extended to you. And sometimes those decreases in credit, oftentimes those decreases in credit rather, occur seemingly spontaneously, right? Like you don't know that it's coming. You don't know that, you don't get a warning. It's just boom, your credit score is reduced. You will get a letter or some kind of notification that indicates that this has happened. And oftentimes those letters will be accompanied with a why and the option for you to take a copy of your credit report and kind of review what it is that they saw. So in this particular situation, the individual received this notification that their credit line had been reduced by half, bringing their total utilization from roughly 50% to closer to 100%, in the 90% area range. And of course, this individual is extremely distraught over this. Very anxious, experiencing high levels of financial anxiety, financial stress. They're thinking about all of the things that could go wrong. What if I get into a car accident? What if I need to replace my tires? What if? And in the process of worrying about a lot of the what ifs, because of the financial anxiety and because of the fact that they felt pretty secure in having access to that available credit, one of the things that they realize is that they can't use credit the same way that they had been previously using it. They can't rely on their credit cards in the same way that they had previously been using it. And so in the work that I do as a financial therapist and as a financial counselor, there is the importance, to me anyway, of acknowledging the emotional state of panic that this individual was experiencing, right? And so, of course, the first thing that we want to do is remove the guilt and the shame from the equation, right? Because, of course, when you're thinking that you have everything kind of in a system, in a flow, you get accustomed to the way things are going, and then all of a sudden your world is shaking up. You really don't know what tomorrow looks like. And a lot of the anxiety and the fear and the guilt associated with carrying such a high balance and not having that cushion that they were relying on is kind of like a doomsday scenario. Like anything could happen, any curveball can come, and I will not be able to address that. And so in supporting their family, in supporting themselves, they may feel feelings of inadequacy. They may feel embarrassed. They may feel that they are not being a good provider. And so the first step to kind of diffusing a situation like that, at least in my approach, is to help that individual or help individuals who are experiencing kind of that emotional roller coaster get to a place where there's flat land, as I like to refer to it. And so I've talked many times about the importance of um, mantras and affirmations. I've talked about the importance of being present in the moment. I've talked about the importance of having a strategy and good positive financial behaviors. And this is something that I always talk about in my practice and in the work that I do with individuals. But this particular situation really stood out to me because they're battling with a logical kind of process, right? The arithmetic or the math associated with make sure that your credit limits or rather, make sure that your credit utilization doesn't go above 30%, but also how do we deal with the feelings associated with the fact that we actually let this happen, right? When you look at yourself in the mirror and you have to be accountable to somebody, the person that you hold accountable is you. You made those choices. On the flip side of that, it's important to understand the climate, right? Where we are in terms of the economy, what income looks like versus what the expenses look like. Does this individual have the ability to pay down their credit card more? Does this individual have maybe excessive spending patterns or poor budgeting strategies? And so we can't get to the technical or the tactical part of this equation while they're in a state of panic. So one of the things that I like to do is help, like I said, get people on flat land. And the way that I do that is by helping them to focus on being in the moment. And so the very first question or the very first line of questioning that I will ask is for this individual to reflect on, and this individual could be any individual, this individual could be you, to reflect on where you are right now. Are you safe? First question, are you safe? Do you have safety? Do you have food? Do you have shelter? If it's cold outside, like we've experienced lately, do you have heat? If it's hot outside, like we've experienced in the summertime, do you have AC? Are your basic needs met? And if the answer to that question is yes, then we move on to starting to kind of deconstruct the stories that we will start, or rather that we have the temptation to start building and thinking about the what ifs. And I'm 100% a doomsdayer, right? Like I'm somebody who likes to think about the worst case scenario so that I can be prepared for the worst, but be happy if the best case situation occurs. Unfortunately, this environment that we live in, we're constantly being jerked between fear-based responses and shame-based responses and stimulation, stimulation, stimulation. You're right, you're wrong, you're smart, you're dumb. We're seeing social media, we're seeing traditional media tell us how we should act, what we should do, where we should go. There's a lot of stimulation there, and so we lose sight of where we are in the current moment, and we lose sight of whether or not we are actually safe. And so that's step number one for me in helping clients move beyond their feelings. That can look like having a conversation about those feelings. That can look like having a conversation about those fears, and then addressing those feelings, addressing those fears by giving them strategies or helping them kind of to position things in a way in their mind that this is not the big bad wolf that we think it is, but really it's just kind of a minor inconvenience or a bump in the road. Now, certainly, nobody wants to be burdened by debt. And so the next area of focus that I would attack in this situation is detaching yourself or detaching your identity from the debt that you carry. And so removing, again, the guilt and the shame and the fear associated with, oh my God, I have all of this burden. You know, I'm a bad person. I'm bad with money. The things that we tell ourselves, these money scripts that we subscribe to. And reframing that to say, well, what were you thinking in this moment? Why did you make this decision? Why did you allow this to happen? What is the behavior that you are exhibiting that puts you in this situation? Some people use money to buy things to make themselves feel better. We've heard of retail therapy. Some people use, I don't know if there's a term for it, but some people use food as a healing mechanism. So they'll go out and they'll eat their feelings. Some people will spend their money on other people as a healing mechanism. Some people will spend money on themselves. In season 1, we had a guest, Asia Evans, who talked a lot about this idea that I deserve it. And so in the feelings of I deserve it, people are going out and they're buying the new thing. But is that individual's fault? Well, I would say a little bit of yes, a little bit of no. When you wake up in the morning and the first thing that you do is grab your phone and you start scrolling through social media, what are you being bombarded with from the moment you open your eyes? Advertisements. When you turn on the television, when you go to the movies, when you go on the computer, what are you being bombarded with? Advertisements. Our phones apparently are listening to us. They might have the ability to actually listen to our thoughts, because I swear that I thought about an item and then saw it on my Instagram account. And so when we recognize that the way that society and this consumerism that is running rampant is set up, where we're constantly being attacked with images and ideas that say you are not good enough, or you are good enough and you deserve this thing, or you need this newer version of this because the old version of this doesn't work as well. And we're constantly being told that we need to buy. The average purchase decision is made after 6 to 8 exposures to that particular item. And so constantly marketers know this, businesses know this, they spend a ton of money trying to break this down into a science. They spend a ton of money to figure out what is their customer avatar. What are the behaviors that you exhibit as an individual? What music do you listen to? What stores do you frequent? What kind of products do you buy? All of these behaviors are tracked and then used and weaponized really against us in an attempt to get us to spend. And so when we do fall into the debt trap of using credit cards that we have access to, or spending above our needs, it's easy for a financial professional to go in and say, you're wrong, you did this wrong, you should not have done this, you should be budgeting, you should be saving. But it's not so easy to put things into perspective and recognizing that the systems that we navigate every single day is encouraging us to make decisions that are counterproductive to our financial well-being. And so helping people by educating them on what it is that they're up against, consciously or subconsciously or both, and understanding how those things interplay with their behaviors is very important. And then the last thing, and I'm oversimplifying this process just to kind of move things along, but the last thing that I would focus on is the actual problem, and that problem being debt. And so the first question that we would have to kind of determine in addressing that issue is, how comfortable do you feel carrying the debt that you're carrying? Are you in a position financially by way of income to pay down that debt? How aggressively can you pay down that debt? How soon do you want to be free of that debt? What are the other ways that you can navigate your lifestyle in terms of where you eat, how often you shop, what other bills you have, what other mouths you have to feed? What are the other variables in your lifestyle that are taking money away from this goal that you're articulating as being important to you with debt elimination? And then coming up with a realistic plan that aligns to this articulated goal. I talked in the first season, I believe, about kind of the interplay between our goals and our values. And within that, sometimes we might set goals for ourselves that we think we should be accomplishing or that somebody told us that we should accomplish, but our heart's not in it. And so in this part of the interaction, it's important for me and the client to come to terms with them leading on what it is that is important for them to accomplish and how aligned with that goal are their value systems in being able to maintain and execute on the strategy that we come up with together. And then we start doing the math. That's the fun part. That's the part that everybody wants to get to. We start figuring out, based off of the income, based off of the expenses, how much can we pay? How aggressively can we pay this loan off or pay this debt off? What are the things that we can cut back on? Are there unused subscriptions? Do you need to have an account with Netflix and Hulu and HBO Max and Stars and Peacock and all of these other providers? Or can you consolidate down to one streaming service and make do with that while you redirect your efforts in those small monthly payments that add up to eliminating debt? Do you have a gym membership that you're not using but you're paying for on a regular basis? Can you redirect the dollars that you're wasting on that gym membership because you're not using it towards paying down this debt? Can you pick up a second job? Or can you find another way to generate income by doing a side hustle or some gig work? Or do you have a skill that you can develop, like writing or coding or speaking, that you can use to generate extra income and focus on decreasing that debt? And at what point in your debt reduction journey will you feel that you have a manageable amount of control over that debt, where you can start again allocating some of those extra resources that you were using towards some of the things in your lifestyle that you might enjoy? It is absolutely a marathon. It is not a sprint. Debt elimination can take time, because just like you didn't accumulate the debt overnight, you're not going to get rid of the debt overnight unless you get lucky and you hit the lotto, in which case, kudos to you. But it's important to stay grounded in your strategy, and it's important that in your strategy, in being grounded in your strategy, that you maintain a cool head. And so in sharing this case study with you all, I got to demonstrate kind of the wearing of two different hats, right? I got to demonstrate what some of the financial therapy arm looks like, and I got to demonstrate some of what the financial counseling arm looks like, and how those two things can overlap. So again, I want to invite you all, if you have any case studies that you would like to share, certainly anonymously, related to your financial circumstances, and maybe finding out how I, as a financial therapist and accredited financial counselor, would deal with that issue, definitely feel free to leave us a comment and or email. You can visit my website at www.rakimsabri.com. And until next time, this has been another episode of Financially Irresponsible. I'm your host, Rakim Sabri, and I can't wait to hear from you guys.
Sometimes life just happens. Don't worry. Farmington Motorsports will get you back on the road and at a fair price. From towing to tires, emissions to transmissions.
Our ASC certified techs do it all.
Farmington Motorsports is a family-run business. We're a Napa Auto Center and AAA approved. We work on all makes and models, from preventative maintenance to major repairs.
And every repair is backed by our 2-year, 24,000-mile nationwide warranty.
When life happens to you, don't worry. Farmington Motorsports.
Follow us on Instagram at nutmeg.tv.